Good morning, everyone. Will you rise in body or spirit for our gathering hymn, Morning Has Come?
Good morning and welcome to First Unitarian Portland. We are a multi-generational community where you are invited to grow your spirit, and collectively we are invited to grow our capacity to build the beloved community together. Welcome to all who are in our sanctuary and to those who are with us via the live stream this morning, and those who may be joining us in the broadcast later this week. And a special welcome to those of you who are visitors. If you are here for the first time or one of your first times, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have following the service. We are so glad that you're here. I do have a couple of announcements. The first is that next Sunday, August 20th, is a chance for everyone and anyone to put a question forward to me. There will be a team of volunteers that will send me those questions, a selection of the questions Sunday morning. And next week's service will be a bit of a dialogue between us, and I'll use the questions that are not selected by that team for fodder for the rest of the year. So you can send your questions via email to q-and-a at firstunitarianportland.org, or right outside of our sanctuary is a box for you to place your questions. So I encourage you to do that following the service. Second, we are delighted to welcome the Reverend Mitra Rahnema into our pulpit this morning. Reverend Mitra is a lifelong Unitarian Universalist, a graduate of Starr King School for the Ministry, and she has served congregations in Missouri, Michigan, and California. And I commend to you the following book. Mitra is the editor of the 2017 UUA Common Read book called Centering: Navigating Race, Authenticity, and Power in Ministry. Welcome, Mitra. And next, I would like to invite Ann Draper from our religious education team to come forward and to share a testimonial with you this morning.
Good morning. I am on the Religious Education Committee, and for many years I've taught in the learning community. And Nicole Bomer asked me to help with teacher recruitment for the coming year, which I am happy to do. Teachers often talk about how we learn as much from the students as they learn from us. This morning I thought I'd share an example. There's a lesson we've used with the 5th and 6th graders called the obstacle course. The teachers set up 2 courses and assign students to teams to race against each other. What isn't immediately obvious but becomes clear after 1 or 2 races is that the game is rigged. One course has more and more difficult obstacles than the other. Through the unfair race, we explore important issues such as sexism, racism, and others. The discussions are great. At this age, the kids get the concepts and often have experiences of their own to draw upon. So this was my expectation as we set up the obstacles one Sunday a few years ago. At the beginning of class, we introduced the activity and assigned teams as usual. But the kids were looking closely, suspiciously, at those 2 obstacle courses. Before even one race, they recognized it was a setup. This hadn't happened in prior years. With very little discussion, the whole class descended on the obstacles and started moving them around to create 2 identical courses. Meanwhile, a small subgroup formed spontaneously, went to a table in the corner, and began industriously making checkered flags to be used at the start and finish lines. We adults were observing the ongoing mutiny, wondering whether and how to intervene. After all, a fair race would defeat the purpose of the lesson, right? And what was the deal with those flags? There are no flags in the lesson plan. Then it slowly dawned on me. The kids weren't missing the point. They were embodying the purpose of the lesson. No one in the class was willing to participate in an unfair game, even those who would have been advantaged. And in addition to demanding an even playing field, these 11-year-olds wanted to ensure that everybody played by the rules. And how do you enforce rules in a race? Checkered flags, obviously. We ran several races on the fair course. Flaggers called the starts and declared the winners. Each team won some and lost some. No one jumped the gun. Everyone seemed satisfied. And then it was time for snack. These kids are now young adults, and I imagine them in their future work lives. Maybe they'll redraw gerrymandered congressional districts, or better yet, run for Congress. Whatever they do, they'll take with them an intuitive sense of fairness, the ability to identify injustice, and the determination to work with others to make the world a better place. So here's the pitch. You knew it was coming. Though this class has moved on, there are others waiting in the wings. If you choose to work with them, I guarantee they will surprise you, challenge you, and make you proud. If teaching might be for you, please consider volunteering. Ushers will have sign-up sheets in the narthex after service. No obligation, just contact numbers for Nicole or Cassandra to provide additional information and answer your questions. Thank you.
And thank you. What a fantastic invitation to teach, and also for the parents that are out there, what a fantastic invitation to register your children and youth right now and to respond to that email that was sent out by Nicole just in the past week. One more announcement I want to just share in terms of us practicing mindfulness around our safety, around COVID. COVID is on the rise again, and it seems to be still one of the less serious COVID outbreaks in terms of symptoms, but nonetheless, it is not fun to be sick. At Elliott Camp, where a number of Unitarian Universalists attend in the last week, there was a bit of an outbreak. So I want to make sure you know I asked the choir, nobody in our choir or anyone they live with went to Elliott Camp. If there is someone here that went to Elliott Camp, I would invite you to grab a mask from outside just to be extra cautious. And just anyone who's in the room, if you want to be a little more comfortable and move, we're about to greet our neighbors, that's a fine thing. And let's be mindful by sharing our hearts close, but greeting people from a little bit more of a distance today. So let us now turn and greet our neighbors here, and wonderful greetings to those online as well. And just a reminder that our coffee hour is right below us in Fuller Hall following the service. And now I invite Reverend Mitra to come forward and to light our chalice this morning. If you're at home, I invite you to light a chalice if you have one, or a candle with us. We are Unitarian Universalists. We light this chalice in faith, in hope, and in love.
Good morning. Congratulations to you all because you've made it to church. You weathered the morning, you contended with coordination and muddled with your thoughts and to-do lists. You have arrived. Even some of you navigated the bridge closures. You've arrived to a place that you carved out for worship together. So take notice. Take notice of this place where you can still your body. Take notice of the people, known and unknown, you share this space. Take notice of those you miss but remain in the crevices of your heart. Take notice of the potential that's present, the love that can emerge. Take notice of the ground beneath all, and open yourself to the possibility that now is the time for it to all become holy. You have been called. You have been called to worship. Let us rise and join together in singing hymn number 298, Wake Now My Senses.
Not quite yet, but yes.
Oh.
Do the voluntary first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I wrote it in the wrong place. Sorry. get it. Please join in our responsive reading. This house is for the ingathering of nature and human nature.
It is a house of friendships, haven in trouble, and open room for the encouragement of our struggle.
It's a house of freedom, guarding the dignity and worth of every person.
It offers a platform for the free voice, for declaring, both in times of security and danger, the full and undivided conflict of opinion.
It is a house of truth-seeking, where scientists can encourage devotion to their quest, where mystics can abide in a community of searchers.
It is a house of art, adorning its celebrations with melodies and handiworks.
It is a house of prophecy, outrunning times past and times present in visions of growth and progress.
This house is a cradle for our dreams, the workshop of our common endeavor.
Let us join in singing the congregation's doxology.
Today, we share our offering with Oregon UU Voices for Justice. This is our statewide advocacy network that mobilizes Unitarian Universalists and their congregations to work for public policies in Oregon that embody Unitarian Universalist principles of democracy, justice, equity, compassion in human relations, and global stewardship. When we move through Oregon UU Voices for Justice, we have an opportunity at the State House to say, we speak for all of the Unitarian Universalists in our state, in every legislator's part of every legislator's constituency. It is a powerful opportunity. If you'd like to donate via check or cash, our ushers will be coming around in just a moment. If you'd like to give electronically, you can find the QR code on the screen or on the yellow slips of paper in the racks in front of you. And if you're on Boxcast, you can also use the Donate Now button. Thank you for your generosity. It helps us move our values into the world. Let us open our hearts to hear the milestones that have happened in the lives of our fellow congregants since we last met. Some you share with us and invite our lay ministers and ministers to hold throughout the week, and we companion you with our prayers. And others you send to us to be shared aloud on Sunday morning. The first parish concern is about Joe Roberts, husband of Marguerite Cohen and beloved emeritus professor of mathematics at Reed College. He suffered a stroke on August 7th and is hospitalized at Kaiser Sunnyside Hospital. He is recovering remarkably well. His family is all here and love surrounds him. He shares, being a dedicated atheist, no prayers are needed, but thoughts and good cheer are appreciated. Jim Zarin, a longtime member and former moderator, is in the hospital struggling with an illness that is affecting his kidneys. Please hold him in healing prayers as he recovers from a surgical procedure this week. And finally, I just want to lift up what I know is on all of our minds, the wildfires in Hawaii, which have led to at least 93 deaths that we know of. And we also know that at least 4,500 people are now in need of shelter. As we hold in our hearts the imagining and reimagining of what home means to us, let us send forth our prayers and find out actions that may be of service to those suffering right here in the West. I invite you into a continued time of prayer and reflective meditation. Spirit of life and abundant love, allow us to feel and to receive the gifts of this, our spiritual home. Words, music, and the peace of our sanctuary, offering grace and beauty. A feeling of kinship with those we know and those we do not yet know. An awareness of just how precious is one day, 1 hour, each moment. The spaciousness to hold our gratitude and our joy, our anger and our grief. Elements that challenge us and call us to righteousness and renewal. And the wisdom to know each one of us can make a difference, and nothing rests on our shoulders alone. May these gifts of our spiritual home flow in us and among us and out through us into the world, that we may carry these sparks of truth, beauty, and inspiration into our dwelling places, into our places of work and learning, into our neighborhoods and communities, and into our dealings with our state and our nation. So may it be, and amen. And now I invite you into a time of silence together. Let us sing together, Return Again. Today's reading is an excerpt of The Hill We Climb by Amanda Gorman, written for the 2020 inauguration of President Joe Biden. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always justice. And yet the dawn is ours. Before we knew it, somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promise to Glade, the hill we climb. In 2023, this poem was banned from an elementary school in Florida. It stands accused of having hate messages for these stanzas, which I shall reread, because that is part of why church. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always justice. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished.
So it's summertime. There are not a lot of churchy holidays to honor. It's time for fun and adventure. Why church? Why go to church? I mean, I asked somebody out there right before the service today, and he said, well, depends on if it's football or not. I mean, every week, really? I personally would come if I was promised pizza and cookies, but that's just me because I'll show up for any greasy or sugary food anywhere. But really, it's summer, and I don't think I have to prove anything or produce anything or get into routine or think about being good, right? Not in the summer. I mean, Santa isn't working on his list quite yet, so I could slip by for a bit, right? On top of that, it's really hot, and that doesn't make me want to do anything or go anywhere. So, really, church? I'm a Unitarian Universalist. It's no biggie. Glad some people got that joke. This is the self-talk that makes me simplify and turn church into this mythology. Might be all true in some ways, but of course, it's just a piece of the truth. There are other stories too about why church. Such as when I was a child, my family sought community after a tragedy that involved a stranger violation. Everyone came out of this horrific event alive and physically intact and together, but it still affects our family dynamic to this day. Following it, my mother, a single parent with 2 young little girls, moved us to a new town. I think she knew she needed help with the responsibility and probably her shame. So she went to church, the Unitarian Universalist church. Looking back and putting the pieces together, I bear witness to the fact that it was the church that saved my family's collective lives from spiraling into behaviors fed by fear and guilt and dread that was very much real after our trust in humanity was broken and, frankly, our trust in one another, in our family, was shattered. There's no doubt that the congregation, individually and collectively, saved our lives. Moments of care expressed to us kids, the village that embraced my mom, the space that felt like it was physically safe, the faith that allowed us to question what life was all about and sort through the various answers that we might come up with. Our lives over the years came together again. And for me, growing up as a child in the church, I witnessed new people come to the church who were themselves hurt or angry, confused by religion and needing community for their own reasons. People who saw hypocrisy in institutional religion, or who felt a separation from families because they didn't believe. People who were shamed for having doubt. People who were marginalized and told their existence was wrong. Wave after wave of people who rejected, who had themselves also rejected the rejection, and were now looking for restructuring, finding new ways to live a life. In reaction to the religious they had known, they sought control over their belief and the freedom to claim their experience. Then, after a while, finding, as they say, an oasis of the like-minded, they would welcome people just like them, commiserating with the hurt. This was the pattern for Unitarian Universalism 40 years ago. Lives were saved. People don't seek out a new religious community because everything is perfect in their lives. They don't walk in ready to join the board. They don't come to church out of peace and contentment. They come to church because they want something different, something added or changed, new people and perspectives, to reconnect to the human self, to receive the comfort that really only humans can offer one another, and to connect to the sacred parts of life, to connect to the planet, to knowledge, and or with God. To live more out of sense of purpose, of doing something for this world. The late Sinead O'Connor has a song entitled "Take Me to Church." It's one of my favorite songs and inspired this sermon. Some of the words that she sang were, "I don't want to love the way I loved before. I don't want to love that way no more. I don't want to sing from where I have sung before. I don't want to cry anymore. Take me to church." I might add things like, I don't want to feel dread anymore, or be suspicious, or judgmental, or helpless, or afraid, or frantic. I don't want to float aimlessly anymore. I don't want to regret anymore. Don't want to be alone. Don't want to think about what you might add. Take me to church. All of this speaks to this longing for this cycle we can embrace over and over in our lives and has been embraced over the generations, this cycle of liberation, redemption, and renewal. Liberation from our own failings, from the failings of society, the shoulds and the musts, the messages we experience and others experience, liberation from oppression. Redemption, a regaining of hope for ourselves and society, a reconnection to our reflective lives so we can live with internal and external awareness. A life that is worth living, as it has been said. Redemption puts us back on that purposeful path. And renewal, sparking the imagination and creativity that keeps life meaningful and, frankly, beautiful, and gives us energy to be filled up with imaginative energy for ourselves, for others, for our world. If that is what church is for liberation and redemption and renewal, damn it, take me to church. Come on, people. It's all right. I'm not going to bite. It's okay. But I will warn you, the last place I preached, someone said to me afterwards, "That's the sassiest sermon I ever heard." It's the best compliment I've ever gotten. All right, back to where we are. In contemporary times, I think people come to church for some new reasons. Today, many were not hurt by religion in the past or didn't grow up in a religious family, so institutions are kind of a new experience. People seek to have a place to talk about this religious stuff. They're not traumatized by that male god in the sky passing judgment. Instead, there may have been a moment when a child of theirs said to their parent, came home and said, "Do we believe in God?" And the parent thinks, "I don't know what to say." Or one of my favorite kid questions that I really did receive was, "My friend said Jesus came back to life, so is he a zombie?" Real seriously. Technically. But just so you know, I did tell him zombies don't exist, because I'm not that reckless. These great questions bring those who have not been part of a religious community to church. Other contemporary reasons, particularly after the pandemic, which I'm not sure I can say after. I don't really know how to do that, but people are seeking, of course, clarity and want to find ways to safely participate in a larger life. And some people experience this sense of dread for their lives, or for one has done or didn't do, not sure how to change that feeling. They're seeking something else. Others want an avenue for being part of building a just and sustainable world, because we got to do it differently. Pandemic sure said that. To be on the side of love in the face of modern-day fascism. I've also heard many seeking, after the pandemic, some kind of sense of whimsy, which is a kind of spiritual awareness. This is a desire to strengthen their spiritual lives, and for some, it's all of the above, all of those reasons. Essentially, liberation, redemption, renewal. In our Unitarian Universalist faith, eventually, as people arrive at church seeking, for however, over the generations, eventually, with time, those same people, all of you, actually become the church. When that happens, it is no longer about one's individual search for knowledge or experience, one's seeking. Now you become the liberation, redemption, and renewal for others. It's no easy task. And in our faith, there is no doubt the people are the church, bound together by covenant and commitment. No doubt. Being the church means honing your skills for being with one another, because the church is how people speak to one another. It's about inclusion and respect. The church is about fellowship. The church is about exploring what it means to be human. And you know what bugs me? Is that I can't just explore what my humanity is once in my life and check it off of my to-do list. You gotta keep doing it. It's a lot to do. The church is about living our faith and values, standing for just and equitable community. It's about being present to the dread in our depths, journeying with one another through the phases of life, being disappointed or facing the fact that we disappoint others, and find forgiveness. The church is about renewing the spirit in the face of oppression. Let me say that again because this is very important to me. Renewing the spirit in the face of oppression. The church is about transforming consciousness. It's a lot, but it's real, and you are the church. And the world needs you to save lives. No joke. There's a lot of pundit chatter out there about how congregational life is dying off, how folks are turned off by the politics of church life, and younger generations are not interested in aligning themselves with an institution. Partly this is true. I don't think this is all true. There is a legitimate argument for it. And I do think congregational life tends to be most comforting to specific times in our lives, specific ages. But I'm concerned that we will resign ourselves to create church that serves those of us already here. At a time in the world when what is true or not, what is good or bad, is almost impossible to define, it is the religious congregation that can emerge as a place of intuition, trust, and creativity. In society, the congregation can offer the world a place to hone those skills of mental and spiritual knowledge, so we can confront all the manipulation being thrown at us in a divided society. So why church? What in our specific Unitarian Universalist tradition is actually relevant today? In the efforts of this larger reality of redemption and liberation and renewal, there are three practices rooted in our tradition that can lead us there. And those are connection, question, and centering. Don't worry, I'm going to explain. First, our tradition speaks of community. A lot of people will say, why do you go to church? And I'll say, it's for the community. I didn't mean to be sarcastic about that. That's real. But not just a community for the sake of community. You can find an oasis of like-minded people online these days. It must be for the depth of connection, the mental and emotional, visceral and spiritual connection with another. And let's face it, also with yourselves. And also to things larger than any of us here. Our world experiences loneliness at a much higher rate than we've known in the past. The church is to feel connected to a purpose bigger than the survival of oneself, bigger than my own life. That means we Unitarian Universalists, in order to experience that connection, must learn to express and hold in our emotion so we can feel one another. Second, building on our tradition of wisdom from our experience, as the Transcendentalists propose, the church is about honoring the question today as a theological tool. To ask is like a drop in a pool with endless ripples. Be careful, because these are not questions that antagonize another, or questions to keep others out, like a test or a trial. Rather, curiosity that can replace any judgment. The big life questions, such as what matters, or what or to whom do we belong? What is possible for ourselves? What is possible for the world? What's unrealized? Is there actually inherent worth in humanity? Does the awareness of our death change our life? How do we know what is good and what is bad? What is the source of evil? We must engage with these questions individually and collectively, questions that other traditions won't let us ask. For that is the core practice of Unitarian Universalism, the question. The church today is not about doctrines that can and often do feel so inauthentic to many generations. The big questions, the ones where the answers might be unknowable or may change in our lives depending on where we are at in our development, those are central to who we are as a faith tradition. To ask, to doubt, and nowadays it's called to wonder. Third practice, the church is for the practice of centering things, centering ideas, study, people on the margins of our world. And there are two components to this centering. One is within ourselves. I'll ask you, what are you complicit in marginalizing right now, and do you want to continue that? Do you marginalize your joy or laughter? Do you marginalize your love? Do you marginalize your grief? It's unbearable. What do you push to the edges of your being? Church life wants you to explore the centering of that and talk about it authentically. And then the second part, I wouldn't say second part, the other part is what do we marginalize collectively in our society? Those people who are told explicitly and implicitly that they do not matter must be proactively engaged by the church, using our collective power to offer an unapologetic love and embrace, not to everyone, believe it or not, that might be heretical, but to those who are oppressed by systematic marginalization. Over time, we as a tradition have centered some things which lead us to make significant cultural change. For example, we look deeply at equality for women in our practices and texts, lesbian and gay rights and love. We've also centered sex education to reclaim our sexual lives. These are areas that will always need work and tending to as we learn again and again and as new people join our journey. But the tipping point for that cultural change within the congregational life has happened. There are unspoken ways you all tell one another or a new person what we stand for. So how else might we do the work of widening that embrace? To center what is on the margins. Is it people with accessibility or mental health needs? Is it people under 30 or over 70 whose voices are often marginalized? Is it people of color? Is it transgender people? Is it the homeless, the drag performer, and so on? What will your church be known for? What is on the margins of your community, and what do you want to do about that? The practices, connection, question, and centering the marginal will extend our beautiful and rich living tradition, and people will want to come through the future, through generations to come. So why church? Is it the meetings and policies and covenants and reports and reports and reports? Is it the tedious weeds of building an institution? For some, that might be what's at the forefront. We do all that to nurture the depth of connection, the rigor of the beautiful question, and that prophetic centering of what is on the margins. And in doing that, we become the liberation and redemption and renewal for the next generation. We do all that because you are the church, and our church saves lives. As Sinead O'Connor sings, let us sing songs of loving and forgiving, of eating and drinking and living, songs of calling out in the night like a bolt of light, songs of long and spiteful fails, ones that don't let you sit still, songs that mend broken bones and don't leave you alone. Take me to church. May it be so. And let us join in singing We'll Build a Land. Rise in body or spirit. It's been such a pleasure to be your guest today and to join you in worship. Thank you to Reverend Allison for inviting me to share the pulpit. As you go, may we carry forward this place, becoming the church to the larger world. And as always, go in peace.